The news just keeps getting better and better. Out of the Philippines today, November 19, 2021, Philippines to allow entry of foreign tourists soon from the Department of Tourism. Manila, Philippines. The Department of Tourism said the Philippines would welcome international tourists for leisure travel soon. This development came after Tourism Secretary Bernadette Romulo Payat announced on Friday the Interagency Task Force on the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases has approved in principle the entry of fully vaccinated tourists from green list countries, territories, and jurisdictions upon the request of the agency. She said the entry of foreign tourists would follow the guidelines that would be finalised and approved by the IATF EID. The Department of Tourism said a special technical working group on travel has been tasked to craft the said guidelines for the final approval of the IATF. It's composed of representatives from the Department of Tourism, the Departments of Foreign Affairs, Health, Finance, Trade and Industry, Transportation, Labour and Employment, Public Works and Highways, Bureau of Immigration and Board of Investment, according to the Department of Justice Undersecretary. The proposed guidelines, according to Puyat, would also be based on strict conditions. Under this proposal, the country would open leisure travel from the green countries classified by the Department of Health as low-risk countries to COVID-19. Now, what they're saying here is, yes, they'll be reopening leisure travel for foreign tourists that come from those green list countries. Now, we all know that the green list countries that they've selected are a little bit odd, and we can't work out why some are on there and why others are not on there. But the good news is that they are going to start reopening to foreign tourists. Now, the green list countries change every 2 weeks, or at least they review them every 2 weeks. So the end of November, they will review and we might see some more changes. So either way, this is a very positive sign. Even though they haven't given an exact date, they have committed to allowing foreign tourists from those green countries into the Philippines. Now, if you're wondering who the current green list countries are and who they're not, so we scroll down and we can see, based on the latest IATF resolution number 148-A, signed last November 11th, the following countries are classified under green list from November 16 until November 30. Now, I'm not going to read all these out to you, but you can see them. Some of the countries of note, you've got China on there, you've got Hong Kong, Indonesia, Japan, and we scroll down. What we do see is there is no United Kingdom, there is no United States, there is no New Zealand, and there is no Australia. And I'm sure there's many other countries who might be a bit disappointed at this time. But as I say, November 30, they will reassess, and who knows, those countries could be added. They go on to say the tourism agency added that only fully vaccinated individuals with vaccines recognised by the country's Food and Drug Administration under an emergency use authorisation or those authorised by the World Health Organization would be allowed entry into the country. Now, that will be something for people to check at the time of going to the Philippines, but I do believe it's the Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Moderna, as well as the Sputnik and the Sinovac. There might be one or two others in there, not sure at this time. Puyat said the approval of the Department of Tourism's proposal would help the country's tourism industry to get back on its feet. So they do always make it clear that they understand the problems the country has around the tourism industry. And although they do claim that 85% of their tourism comes from domestic tourism, now I think that might be a bit inflated, but even if it is, what they might not be considering is how much money international tourism brings in. We've got to remember that people come on vacation to the Philippines, or they come to retire in the Philippines and they bring money which they're usually ready to spend, especially those on vacation. They go there for a reasonably short time, but they want to have a really good time, and they do spend money. So recently I did have a quick look at what the average international tourist spends when they're in the Philippines, and it was something like around 6.5 to 7,000 pesos a day, which from memory, it was far more than what the average Filipino will spend on holidays. So that gives us some idea how much they really need international tourism again. They go on to say, allowing tourists from green countries or territories that have the majority of its population vaccinated with low infection rates will greatly help in our recovery efforts, increasing tourist arrivals and receipts, among others. This move will likewise aid in bolstering consumer confidence, which is a large contributor of our gross domestic product, Puyat said. And they go on there to talk a bit about that and how they can protect the jobs and safety of their tourism workers, visitors, and communities, and so on. Puyat also welcomed the development on looming entry of international travellers to the country. Also came as neighbouring countries have already reopened their borders to international leisure travellers. Now, that seems to me that they're very aware and they're watching what the other countries are doing around them, and they don't want to be left behind, which I think that's what they've been doing for some time now, and they're finally realising that they've got to get in the game. Otherwise, they're going to lose out economically. Our Asian neighbours like Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia also did the same. We believe that it's also time for us to reopen our borders for inbound tourism as a way towards full recovery. The Department of Tourism has been proposing the Green Lane that will facilitate the entry of foreign visitors who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 since May in an effort to help the reopening of the economy. It's also working with the small technical working group on travel for another proposal, vaccinated travel lanes or bubbles, as a special program for vaccinated tourists coming from yellow list countries who may be able to enter the country under certain restrictions and strict conditions. So even the countries that are not on the green list, as long as they're not on the red list, which down here it says the Faroe Islands and Netherlands are on that red list. So all other countries, they'll be working out some requirements and conditions around those people coming into the Philippines as well. But if you're on the green list, I do believe you'll be able to come in as long as you're fully vaccinated and you've got the proper paperwork, etc. And it could very possibly mean that you won't need to quarantine when you arrive. Now, that's not been established yet for foreign tourists, so we do wait to see if that's going to be the case, but I have a strong feeling that may very well be the case. Now, just something a little bit interesting here, which has many of us confused as to why the United States may not be on the green list at this time. Now, we can see that the United States, as of 1 day ago from when I was recording this video, has 58.9% of the population who are fully vaccinated. Now, I don't know how accurate these figures are, but this is what I've found. But I do believe it's probably fairly close. Now, the Philippines are looking at not just the vaccination rate, but how many new cases every day that country is actually having. But I don't know. And I guess maybe they have some argument for the case that, well, maybe 58.9% is a little bit lower than they'd like. And maybe there's still plenty of cases coming out every day in the US. I don't know. But still, it is rather baffling to many of us. And if we have a look here, the United Kingdom has 68.5% of the population who are fully vaccinated. So again, a little bit baffling as to why they're not on the list, because that's a pretty good percentage, almost 70% fully vaccinated. So it is rather puzzling as to why the UK are not on there either. And I'll tell you what's even more puzzling is why Australia is still not on their green list. Now, Australia, it says here, has over 70% of their population fully vaccinated. And my understanding from what I've been hearing here in Australia is that it's a lot closer to 80% at this moment of fully vaccinated adults above the age of 16. And I can tell you, we have very few cases of COVID-19 here in comparison to many other countries. I know in the state I live in New South Wales, which is the biggest state in Australia per population, we only had around 200 new cases today. So it's quite baffling to me why Australia is not one of those green list countries already for the Philippines. And it's the same story for our friends over there in New Zealand, who have 68% of the population fully vaccinated. And again, they have very few cases compared to many countries in the world. So why are they not back on the list? They were on there, then they were taken off because they had a handful of cases or something. I'm not sure. But anyway, as I always say, the rules are there to be made by the Philippines government, not by us foreign tourists. So it is what it is. And we can all hope that our countries will be added to their green list very soon so we can go in there fully vaccinated with hopefully no quarantine period very, very soon. So, guys, for some of you, while it may not be the news you're quite after, we've got to look at this as being very, very positive. And I'm sure those countries I mentioned who are not on that green list yet will be on very, very soon. Because let's face it, countries like the US, UK, Australia, New Zealand are all a very important market in their tourism sector. So I'm sure it won't be too long around that. And who knows, they could even open up to foreign tourists before Christmas of this year, which is about 5 weeks away. So it's very possible. But anyway, guys, I hope you take something positive away from this, and I'll be sure to keep you updated as we get new information. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.